Julie, can you tell us a little bit about how you've been looking at the U.S.-Mexico border policies and migrants for 2 decades? How has the new policies of the Trump administration sort of outsourcing the asylum seekers to Mexico and saying that they have to now wait in Mexico for the applications to pen? How has this changed? Can you tell us a little bit about what you found?
Sure. Yeah. So it's unprecedented as far as sending asylum seekers back across the border to wait out their court dates. And most of them are staying either in shelters in these border cities that are dangerous, and or they're staying at low budget hotels, and they pack themselves into rooms in low budget hotels. And basically a lot of them spend, months, even up to now, we're talking probably over a year, where they've been just sitting there, a lot like what Tim said, where they're just kind of in this purgatory. They're scared to go out. There's been cases of some of the asylum seekers who've been killed by just regular crime in these border cities. And they're not, they're relying on they're relying on the donations that are given to these shelters that are largely run by churches and local nonprofits. And that's how they eat. So like I said, they don't have a lot of meals. They have no health care. The Mexican government was sending some public health doctors, but it was pretty random. It was maybe once a week, maybe once a month. And you had a population of, women who were pregnant. You have people with older people in their 60s with health problems, and then young kids. I saw kids with scabies and kids with all kinds of issues with lice. That was a huge problem in the shelters. And no one's really taking responsibility for taking care of them.
Well, in one of the stories that you did, you drew attention to the volunteers that were crossing the border from the U.S., physicians and healthcare workers who were going to volunteer their time and help out because these border towns were overwhelmed. How has that been impacted now with the borders closed and with coronavirus, do you think? I mean,
I actually talked to one of the volunteers, and it has changed because they, like you said, they relied on largely U.S. volunteers coming across. There were also a sizable group of Mexican volunteers, but a lot of them were medical students that would come from all across the country and fly in, and then even professors and doctors and nurses. And so they're not able to cross the border right now because only essential, very few, I guess they say essential workers, but mostly it's basically no one's crossing the border. And so the key volunteers have just moved to Tijuana and they're living there. So I talked to a medical student who's doing his online classes, and then he's living in Tijuana now and helping to run the clinic, and they've cut back the hours. So they're doing what they can with a skeletal crew, but I think a lot of people, that's at their clinic, and they're not able to go into a lot of the shelters because the shelters now along the border have completely closed their doors and aren't allowing any new arrivals, and they're not allowing people to go out at all, even more extreme than when Tim was there because of the coronavirus. And those cities, we're hearing reports that those cities are being overwhelmed by the coronavirus as well. There's, already their hospitals were not well equipped